Morning, guys. It's Tuesday, December 2nd, 5:24 a.m. Central Time. Grain markets are mixed this morning. March corn futures unchanged at 445. January soybeans up 3.5 cents at 1131 and a half. March Chicago wheat down 2 3/4 at 532 and a quarter. March Kansas City wheat down 3 1/4 at 523 and a half. March spring wheat up 1 3/4 at 577 and 3/4. We've got some news pending regarding the farm aid package.
Right. So, Ag Secretary Brooke Rollins is expected to release details of the aid package this week. However, numerous senators and agricultural groups believe the financial assistance will be insufficient to cover the losses farmers have endured. The American Farm Bureau Federation has advocated for the aid, but notes that the potential $12 billion falls far short of the more than $50 billion in economic losses farmers have incurred over the past 3 years. According to Deputy USDA Secretary Stephen Vaden, recently negotiated trade deals could influence the level of aid that will be distributed.
At this point, we're just waiting for the news. I think we've already said most of what needs to be said about this topic in particular. Of course, to go back to the chart, direct payments to U.S. farmers from the government, it's nothing new. It's been happening. It happens under red administrations and blue administrations. It happens in recessions and ag recessions and COVID and all sorts of different things. The question, I think, is this to some degree: is it the responsibility of the government and the U.S. taxpayer to bail out the farmer? That's the question, and a lot of people are going to jump in the YouTube comments and say absolutely not. But at the same time, we have cheap food in this country. We don't spend a lot of our money on the food that we eat relative to other countries. So do you guys like that? You probably don't think about it a whole lot. I did a podcast with Damian Mason, who's got a podcast. It's called The Business of Agriculture. We talked about all of this stuff in great detail. It was a 53-minute episode. It was called Global Grain Glut, Trade Turmoil, and U.S. Ag's Future. If you guys want to see that episode again, it's called The Business of Agriculture. I'll put the link in the YouTube description. But anyways, the news is pending. Supposedly, I mean, we heard this week, but I feel like they've pushed this thing back a couple of times. So we're waiting.
U.S. soybean shipments remain underwhelming. USDA reported that 34 million bushels of beans were inspected for export during the week ending November 27th. The print was up 14% compared to the prior week, but down a whopping 56% versus the same week last year. Corn shipments easily surpassed pre-report expectations at 56 million bushels. The print was down 16% compared to the previous week, but up an impressive 50% versus the same week last year. Wheat shipments fell short of expectations at 14 million bushels. The print was down 20% versus the previous week, but up 29% compared to the same week last year.
Interestingly enough, the very first thing that we've shipped to China this year is U.S. sorghum. There was a very, very, very tiny amount of U.S. sorghum inspected for shipment to China last week. Supposedly, it hasn't been reported yet, but there's some cargoes of soybeans leaving the United States for China also. You should see those in next week's export inspections report. So you're going to start to see, I think, over the next few weeks, some more shipments to China. The problem right now, of course, is that we don't really have the sales on the books to necessitate like massive shipments. I mean, we've only sold a couple million tons of soybeans to China when, U.S. or White House rather has told us we're going to sell 12 million before January 1st. There's 21 business days left in the calendar year. So China would need to average ballpark 464,000 tons of bean purchases every single business day in order to hit that target. It's becoming a little bit more unlikely, in my opinion. Soybean export inspections or shipments, we typically ship the most soybeans out of the U.S. in October, early November, and then we kind of back off a little bit. So we're already past peak shipping window, as I've mentioned before. Are we going to see a big contra-seasonal spike in soybean shipments, like during the same time frame that Brazil typically ships their soybeans to China? I don't really know. I'll be curious to see how this resolves.
Brazil's soybean planting is slightly behind last year's pace. According to well-followed private group Ag Rural, as of last Thursday, 89% of the crop had been planted, compared to 91% during the same week a year ago. Some regions are dealing with a lack of moisture. However, it is still too early to raise concerns about yield losses. Patria Agronegocios raised its outlook for Brazil's soybean crop by 0.2% to 171.9 million metric tons on Monday. Even with the upward revision, its estimate remains well below other projections, including CONAB's 177.6 million metric ton outlook and the USDA's estimate of 175 million metric tons.
Okay, so that estimate from Patria, which is just south of 172, I mean, people are going to look at it and say, "Oh my gosh, it's 3 tons lower than USDA. 3 million tons below USDA." I don't think it makes a difference. 172, 177, whatever it is, it's a damn big crop. The forthcoming Brazilian crop is expected to be 51% larger than this year's U.S. crop, and Brazil just continues to expand. Perhaps the biggest problem, or one of the big problems for the U.S. soybean producer, is this: soybean exports, Brazil and the United States. Brazilian soybean exports have increased 293% since 2010. U.S. exports during the same time frame increased only 9%. So Brazil continues to garner more and more and more of the global export share, and that is to the detriment of the U.S. farmer. To look at some weather over the last 14 days, Brazilian soybean areas saw only 73% of their normal rainfall. Southern Brazil in particular was especially dry. Argentina's dry also, only 61% of normal rainfall across Argentina's soybean areas. Great maps from our friends at Crop Profit. Over the next 7 days, more normal rainfall in Brazil, although it's a little bit more complicated than that. So Brazilian soybean areas are expected to see 104% of their normal rainfall. However, most of that's going to be to the north, central and northern areas up into Mato Grosso, places like that. Southern Brazil is going to stay dry. Argentina is going to be a little bit drier than normal. And then you see more normal rains return to Brazil during the 8 to 14 day period. Still reduced rains versus normal in Argentina during that 8 to 14 day period.
If you guys have not checked out our premium content, you sure need to do so. Joe, can you tell our viewers about yesterday's premium video?
We did a mailbag with Pete Meyer yesterday, and it was really fantastic. We had some great questions that came in from subscribers. Is this the new norm in farming? And the new norm being what we asked Brooke Rollins about, the new norm in that farmers grow crops that don't make money and then they're subsidized by the government. Is that the new norm? And if it's not the new norm, how does the situation resolve itself? Do we see a bunch of farm bankruptcies and see a big reset? I don't know if we're headed in that direction. But in any case, we talked about that. We talked about USDA, some of the forthcoming reports, general market direction type stuff, the CFTC reports, the whole China situation. Pete's absolutely fantastic. He's a national treasure as far as ag market analysts are concerned. If you guys want to see the premium stuff, go to standardgrain.com. You can sign up this morning. This is a $50 per month subscription. You can cancel at any time. No other fee, no other obligation. Nobody will try to sell you anything else. Just sign up on your phone or on your computer. You'll get the emails twice a day. The links to the premium videos are included in the emails. You just click the button and the video plays. You don't have to log in or set up any instructions or anything like that. It's an absolute piece of cake. Give that deal a shot this morning, guys.
USDA rolled out another catch-up export sales report yesterday. For the week ending October 23rd, net soybean sales were strong, coming in at 53 million bushels. The print was up 31% from the previous week, with Mexico as the largest buyer. Net corn sales were also solid, totaling 71 million bushels. The print was down 36% from the prior week, with Mexico as the largest buyer. And net wheat sales were reported at 18 million bushels. The print was up 46% versus the previous week, and unknown destinations were the largest buyer for the week.
Mackenzie, I'm sure you love writing copy about export sales every other day.
It's so exciting.
Yeah, this is super exciting. But hey, we got to cover what's out there. So through whatever date this was, October, was it 23rd?
Yes.
Still got the best book of U.S. corn export sales on record, and by a fairly decent margin. Soybean sales are still absolutely terrible. There is nothing to China included in this graphic right here. We have sold soybeans to China, but it hasn't been added yet. And wheat export sales, again, are pretty good, but you wouldn't know it by looking at the market.
On Monday, Australia's Department of Ag raised its forecast for this season's wheat crop by 5.3% to 35.6 million metric tons. If realized, the crop would be 4% larger than last year, 29% above the 10-year average, and the third largest on record. The massive crop is attributed to timely spring rainfall and mild spring temperatures across Australia's main growing regions. The near-record harvest comes amid ample global supply, which of course is pressuring wheat prices. Back in October, Chicago wheat futures fell to their lowest level in more than 5 years.
Interesting fact about Australia. Did you know that the biggest rock band to ever come out of Australia is AC/DC? And there's a guy that I work out with who's from Australia. Do you know what they call AC/DC in Australia?
I have no idea.
They call them Akadeka. Why do they call them that? I don't know. That's what they do. Anyways, Australia is expected to account for a whopping 4.3% of all global wheat production. It's really tough to have a wheat rally based on like this isn't a crop scare. They're talking bigger crops, but like you have a problem in Australia. I mean, you got so much wheat being produced in so many other places. This is part of the reason why the Black Sea was such a big deal, because Russia and Ukraine combined account for like a quarter of all global wheat exports. But I don't know, I guess Australia and the Akadaka fans there will enjoy a big wheat harvest this year. What did cattle do yesterday?
Cattle futures were mostly lower. Live cattle were 17 cents to $2 lower. Feeders were 77 cents higher to $2.90 lower. Box beef prices were higher. Choice was up 207 at 368.89, and Select was up a whopping 683 at 357.88.
For my money, AC/DC is the greatest rock band to ever exist, and that might generate some YouTube comments.
Yes, it definitely
people will disagree. Oh, it's the Stones, the Beatles, whatever. Shut up. S&P's up 20 points. The Dow's up 60 points. Treasuries are mixed. Crude oil is down 16 cents at 59.16 in the January WTI. Have a great day, guys. We'll be back on Wednesday.